My sister-in-law saved my life with her milk, so I care about my sister-in-law extra. Because my elder brother and I went hunting in the mountain. We encountered a cyber because my brother drank 18 bowls of wine, and he thought he was Woo-song with the alcohol.
I have a nickname called Tiger tonight.
Looking at my brother, I kept shouting. I told him to climb up the tree like me for refuge, but the result was bad. He rushed towards the tiger with all his might, and he shouted that he wanted to be a hero. But that night, he was eaten by the tiger, while I hid in the tree and watched all night. When the tiger left, I was almost exhausted. I fell from the tree. I could only crawl back home little by little, and then I passed out because of my brother's death. I couldn't help him. On one hand, I felt, and the other was fear. So I actually fell asleep for 3 days and nights. When I woke up again, I saw my sister holding my little nephew, who was a few months old, and stayed by my side. My brother's death had spread throughout the village. But at this time, my sister-in-law didn't have time to grieve. She went to the kitchen and saw the only bowl of white porridge, but she didn't bring it to me. She knew that in my case, I must eat something nutritious. So, she squeezed her breast milk into a baby bottle and held my head in her arms, feeding me like a baby. I felt the warmth with thick fat and protein warmth. At this moment, I instinctively swallowed it. Finally, I gained some strength, seeing that I was the only man left at home. I also planned to use my own ability to live a good life for my sister-in-law and nephew. Seeing that I drank a lot of milk, to repay my sister-in-law, I had to earn money to buy some supplements for her. But I have no education. I had to work as a porter at the dock. I carried the heavy sacks in the hot sun. One carried 200 caddies of sacks every step. My shoes left black marks on the hot slate every step. If it were me before, I would have been exhausted by now. But strangely, since I drank the milk my sister-in-law gave me, in my body, there's always a heat that hasn't dissipated. The heat penetrated into my bones, making me feel like I have endless strength. The sun at the dock is like a big fireball, and the road was smoking. I carried a 200 gin sack. I felt like a mobile sauna room. Kong, are you out of your mind? This is 200 caddies of raw iron, or you're walking faster than Urshanzi chasing his wife. Just then, a loud cracking sound came from midair.
Oh my god! Run! The rope is broken!
A container full of steel fell down like a small mountain. The coolies around were scrambling to get out. Lo Wang was run away, fell to the ground. He shouted like a pig.
Oh no, Kong is going to be a meat pie!
As my body fell just now, my legs instinctively plunged to the ground. My hands instinctively pulled up to the sky. With a bang, the container was steady, stopped firmly in my hand. The cement floor under my feet cracked like tofu, and several big cracks cracked with a snap, but I only felt my shoulders sink. It was probably just like carrying 2 buckets of water. The crowd was silent. Lao Wang got up tremblingly. He looked closely and reached out to touch the container under my hand, then slapped himself hard across the face.
Ouch! Kong! You're the dancing star reincarnated.
I was also confused. I found that when my palm was against the tin, my mind suddenly seemed to have a 3D printer, an identical container, and formed in the stone sea. I reached into my pocket and I actually produced a steel screw. A steel screw exactly like the container lock. Maybe my brother in heaven blessed me. Didn't he always say he was a tiger slayer? I guess this strength was passed on to me by him in a dream.
If your brother had this ability, that night, the tiger would probably kneel down and call him Dad!
Soon it was night. The weakness after the power ebbed came to me like a flood. I felt like a deflated balloon, and I was staggering. There was a bowl of sweet potato porridge. My sister-in-law was patting her little nephew while looking at me with concern.
Kong, I heard from Lao Wang that you were a hero at the dock. Don't be brave in the future. If something happens to you, who will I rely on for my child?
Sister-in-law, I suddenly awakened my power. I answered absent-mindedly, but my eyes were fixed on the bottle on the stove.
Ah!
Eat quickly. Don't look at the bottle. It's for whose night milk.
My sister-in-law blushed, and then got up to put the baby to sleep. Time quickly passed to 12 o'clock at night. I crept up quietly and slid into the kitchen like a gecko. The bottle, illuminated by moonlight, is emitting a fatal temptation to me. I grabbed the bottle. I muttered, Husey, I'm sorry, bro. Uncle, this is for building a better family. If you drink less, I'll buy you a box of milk powder tomorrow. Soon, under the warm liquid, the feeling of current spreading through my body came back again. I feel like I can punch through a load-bearing wall now.
Who's there? Who's there?
Sister-in-law's voice suddenly sounded at the door, which made me tremble. I turned my head stiffly. I saw my sister-in-law wearing a thin pajama, holding a stick for burning fire, staring at me with a surprised look.
Kong, why aren't you sleeping? What are you doing with Husey's bottle?
My mind was racing fast, and my palms were sweaty. I suddenly had an idea, and made a painful expression. Sister-in-law, I'm sleepwalking. I dreamed of Big Brother. He said he was hungry, and insisted on me finding food. When I woke up, I was holding the bottle. Sister-in-law came over suspiciously, took the empty bottle, and looked at me suspiciously.
Sleepwalking with targeted feeding. You need to get this treated.
I'll treat it tomorrow. After saying that, I quickly fled out the door, but before leaving, I still teased her. Sister-in-law, you said, the drink for sleepwalking is quite sweet.
Go back to sleep. It's for your nephew tonight. nourish his brain. Can you grow taller after drinking it?
Hearing this, I smiled secretly. Although I don't grow taller, but I can gain skills. The next morning, I was woken up by my sister-in-law's scream.
Come out quickly.
I rubbed my eyes and walked over. I felt a bit guilty. After drinking the magic water, I not only had great strength, but my mind was also very excited. I remembered to go to the toilet. I saw on the kitchen stove, there was a can of milk. This was the top quality sheep milk powder. Top quality sheep milk powder? I picked up the milk powder and stared at it, thinking if there were more cans. In the next second, the milk powder suddenly turned into 2 cans. Oh my goodness, what's going on here? Thinking of what happened during the day, could it be my sister-in-law's magic water? Gave me this amazing ability. With infinite strength and replication. Thinking of this, I simply started to duplicate the milk powder. But the consequence, it made my spirit gradually languish. The next morning, my sister-in-law saw the stove full of milk powder. At this time, my sister-in-law pointed at the iron cans. Her hands were shaking.
I just took a nap.
And this thing grew in our kitchen.
Kong, tell me the truth. Did you go to town to rob the sheep?
Sister-in-law, let me tell you the truth. Last night when I was sleepwalking, my brother manifested. Besides, sister-in-law, look, this powder is as white as snow. If Who's drinks it, he will definitely grow as strong as a calf. No matter how this milk powder came, as long as it appears in our house. It's ours now. Sister-in-law still looked like you think, I'm a fool. Expression. But looking at the hungry Husey, she finally didn't throw it away. Perhaps because of the sleep. I was on the dock at this time. I was like a human bulldozer, the heavy motor that originally needed for people lift. I carried them one by one like yo-yos and ran everywhere. The foreman Wang's eyes on me now. It's not like looking at workers, but like seeing smoke coming out of his ancestral grave.
Hey Kong Jae, you take a rest and let me do it. Don't do it yourself. I'll handle this rough work for you. With your command, I will do my best to handle it.
But I was about to be polite.
There was a sudden cheer outside the dock.
Several ruffians in shabby clothes, surrounded by a fat man wearing a gold chain, walked in. He was the notorious local Jin Daya, who specialized in usury and selling. Jin Daya sneered at me with a shaved head.
You're quite strong, aren't you? Just with these few moves, thinking he could run wild on my dock. You're still too young.
I happen to have a shipment that fell into the river.
It's sinking. You go and salvage it. If you do well, I'll give you to Yuan.
Time off.
I sneered in my heart. To Yukonic Yuan? That's just a pittance? But I just wanted to try a new way to use my power. I walked over, in front of everyone. I picked up a discarded rusty iron ball on the ground. I weighed it. I rubbed my 2 hands on the iron ball, like kneading dough. The rusty magnet actually deformed rapidly in my hands. Finally, in front of everyone, I spread my palm. A round iron ball, at this time, had been squeezed into an irregular shape by me. Everyone was stunned at this. They didn't know why a person's strength could be so great. Jin Daya is not a fool. Of course, he knew. For someone like me, more people won't help. So he simply waved his hand. He set up 8 tables, and I didn't choose not to go. He originally wanted to recruit me, but I saw his look of eating people without spitting bones. I felt sick and naturally refused. But what I didn't expect was that. He actually took out a Browning pistol. In that era, this was a symbol of power.
Have you seen this baby? As long as I pull the trigger, your brute force is a joke. Kneel down and call me dead. You can play with this gun later.
I stared at the gun. My mind suddenly exploded. My copy ability. I sensed the complex mechanical structure.
Kong, come out here.
Just when the atmosphere was freezing, my sister-in-law pushed in. She was still wearing that floral shirt, holding Who's in her arms, with anxiety on her face. Jin Daya sneered. He actually had bad thoughts about my sister-in-law. Don't touch him. I roared. I don't know where the strength came from, and pounced on the table, my palm, and pressed it tightly on the Browning pistol. At that moment, a sense of unprecedented emptiness swept over me. The energy required to copy this precision weapon. I couldn't handle it. I felt like my bone marrow was being drained. Jin Daya kicked me to the ground with 1 foot. I hit the chair heavily. I was limp all over, and I couldn't even move my fingers. The thugs around laughed heartily.
This is the dock strong man.
Like a weakling shrimp.
My sister-in-law was scared, although she didn't know what happened, but saw my face as white as paper, and she was heartbroken.
Hatikaya Kong! What happened to you? Don't scare me, sister-in-law.
He quickly took out the warm bottle. It was prepared for emergencies. He hadn't had time to feed Husey.
Drink a few sips.
Sister-in-law ignored the eyes of others, just like at home, dragging my head and pouring it into my mouth. The warm liquid went down. It was like a lightning bolt directly into my soul. I felt every cell was frantically rearranging the originally dry power, and instantly set off a huge wave. Not only did I regain my strength, and my brain is clear, I flipped my palm the second I touched the pistol. I had already completed the copy. I stood up and patted the dust off me. With a cold look in my eyes, Jin Daya saw this, reached out to grab the gun on the table. But under everyone's gaze, I took out from my pocket, actually out of thin air, a Browning pistol that was exactly the same. Click, click, the bullet loaded. Jin Daya looked at the gun on the table, and then looked at the one in my hand. His eyes almost popped out.
You have a gun on you. It's impossible. I've searched your body.
You didn't search carefully.
What do you want to do? Don't do anything. Let's talk it out calmly.
I held it with one hand. The iron lump weighing several caddies is as stable as Mount Tai in my hand. Because of my physical fitness, my eyesight, I can even see the wings of a fly dozens of meters away. Jin Daya, Is your gun a fake? He sneered. He waved his left hand. Another Browning appeared in his hand. Then the third, fourth, and fifth came out. I seemed to be performing magic, but no one dared to laugh. I lined up the 5 real guns on the table, the cold metal impact sound, shaking everyone's guts to pieces. Do you want to compare numbers or more firearms? I stared at Jin Daya. Jin Daya knelt down with a thud. He knew that a person who can take out so many forbidden souls was definitely not a coolie. He was an immortal to be feared. Seeing him kneel down, I didn't embarrass him. Sister-in-law, let's go home. I put the gun into a small space in the stone sea. This is the third ability I just discovered. It seems that I can put items into this space that only I know about. At this moment, I picked up the half bottle of water and walked out with my sister-in-law. The moment I walked out of the restaurant, I realized, as long as my sister-in-law, I can build an empire. The moonlight, the way home was long. Sister-in-law hugged Who's tightly. She didn't say a word along the way, but the rapid breathing told me she hadn't recovered from the shock just now when entering home. Sister-in-law plugged the door bolt.
A Kong? You tell me the truth, sister-in-law. Our family is an honest one, although your brother died tragically, but he never stole a chicken from the village.
I looked at my sister-in-law's anxious face. My heart tightened. I know. I can't fool you with sleepwalking alone. I took out the 2 Browning pistols I just copied, the heavy iron clods, on the wooden table, making a dull sound. Sister-in-law, I didn't do bad, actually. I have awakened a craft. I picked up a rough porcelain bowl with a crack. As long as I touch something, I can replicate it. But this kind of craft is very tiring. I found that, as long as I drink your stuff, I have amazing strength, and my brain works fast. To prove it, in front of my sister-in-law, I put my palm on the bowl. 1 second, 2 seconds, and then in my other hand, a miracle happened. Perfectly identical notch appeared. My sister-in-law, seeing this scene, tremblingly touched the 2 bowls.
Is this a fairy or a demon possession?
My sister-in-law looked at me. There was no fear in her eyes, but more of a pity, because she saw me. I was too weak to hold the table. The feeling of being drained came again at this time. Copying guns, this kind of precision weapon, almost exhausted all the mental energy. I sat down on the bench, breathing heavily with my mouth open. Seeing this, she didn't have time to ask me anything, and quickly slipped into the room. At this time, the whole house, only the sound of Husey sucking in the cradle. A few minutes later, my sister-in-law came out blushing, holding a bottle filled with juice in her hand.
Drink it quickly, and hide those iron bumps after drinking. Don't let outsiders see it.
I took the bottle. The temperature burned my heart. With this sip, the overwhelming power came back instantly. Not only that, I found that my 5 senses became more acute. I could even hear the chirping of crickets in the corner. When I recovered, I suddenly realized that I could use my copying ability to make money and improve my sister-in-law's, but my ability seems to be impossible. Those priceless precious metals, such as gold and diamonds. If I copy antiques, even if it's real, they would be considered fakes. After all, that kind of thing is unique and right, but this doesn't stop me, since I can't directly turn it into gold. I have to rely on currency. What is the most valuable thing to make money? Western medicine, especially the anti-inflammatories in hospitals. The next day, I took my only few silver dollars to the city hospital. I didn't buy it. I just took advantage of the clerks. Using the opportunity to check, I gently touched it with my hand. The medicine bottle with a foreign label. When I got home, I locked myself in the room. I recalled the medicine and started to copy it. 1, 2, 10 bottles. Although this replication consumed a lot of energy, but with my sister-in-law's support, I was like a mobile pharmaceutical factory. I sold the copied medicines to the drug dealers who needed them. In just 3 days, I exchanged them for a thick stack of banknotes. Then I didn't just sell a single item. In short, as long as there's a chance, I bought everything. With the money, I also bought the softest satin for my sister-in-law. I bought snacks only available in town, and even a television, and a washing machine, a refrigerator, and so on. But I know that the bigger the business, the more people will stare at me. At this moment, there was a clutter outside the yard. It was the sound of a car. See any from then? A man wearing gold-rimmed glasses walked in. Comrade Zhao Qingyi, hello. I am Manager Joe from Hengda Trinsil Internal. I heard you have a batch of imported bearings and seamless steel pipes. Imported bearings and seamless steel pipes. My heart skipped a beat. Bearing and pipe, which are the lifeline of industrial production. I'm just a messenger. The goods were shipped from the south. Don't be modest. We have checked the railway freight records. There is no shipping information of yours. Zhao Kong, you are a talent. Our boss wants you to go to the provincial capital, as long as you agree. Villa and car. And your beautiful sister-in-law can enjoy it. He deliberately emphasized the word sister-in-law, and his eyes were not innocent, and swept his eyes over in-law's back. My anger rose up in an instant. What if I don't go? Manager Joe sneered. He took out a pimping card. Then perhaps you'll be arrested for speculation tomorrow. Be arrested. Your little nephew will have no one to take care of. Manager Joe's eyes behind his gold-rimmed glasses scraped over me like a venomous snake. The 2 thugs behind him have taken a step forward, deliberately revealing the black electric barn on his waist. In the early 90s, this thing was the law in the local area. What's going on? A Kong? Sister-in-law heard the noise in the room and came out with who's when Manager Joe saw her. His eyes suddenly lit up. It was a greedy look of determination. Yo, this is your sister-in-law. She's so pretty. It's a pity to stay in this poor mountain. My anger instantly rushed to the top of my head, but the familiar feeling of weakness suddenly hit me. To change money for my family, I just copied a set of high-precision imported bearings. My body feels like it's been hollowed out. My palms are shaking. My sister-in-law grabbed my sleeve. I whispered in her ear, sister-in-law, go to the back room? Whether I can live today, it's all up to you. My sister-in-law was stunned, looked at my pale face and suddenly understood. She blushed and nodded with tears in her eyes, and turned and rushed in, and then came a faint, but a rapid collision of bottles and jars. Not long after, I pushed the door out. There were several burly thugs standing outside. I held the bottle with residual warmth in my hand and drank it in front of him. One of the thugs burst into laughter, but the laughter stopped abruptly after 3 seconds. I took a step forward. The blue bricks under my feet cracked. I actually stepped on a deep pit. Manager Joe's face changed and was about to back. I had already reached him. I reached out and directly grabbed the bumper of his Santana. I roared loudly. I used my waist in the terrified screams of everyone. The one-ton car was lifted off the ground by my single hand and smashed heavily into the mud, raising a cloud of dust. The 2 thugs were scared that they threw away the batons. They collapsed on, like 2 ducks with their necks pinched. Roll or die. My voice was hoarse. The terrifying sense of oppression made Manager Joe wet his packly and even left his briefcase. He fled with his men in a panic towards the village. They ran away, but the heat in my body didn't stop. This high-intensity charging has brought my physical fitness to its peak, but it also brings an indescribable side effect. My skin was burning hot and scary. My reason was on the verge of losing control. I staggered and pushed open the door. My sister-in-law was there, holding scissors in her hand, with a panicked face. I looked over. I felt everything in my sight was in double. Sister-in-law was there. She was no longer just the one who fed me. She became the only reassurance in my life. My voice was hoarse and punched the door frame. The hardwood instantly cracked. My sister-in-law was scared and quickly came to touch my forehead.
Oh my God! Why are you so hot?
Kong, don't scare me. Is it mine?
When his fingertips touched my skin, at that moment, the ability to copy in my mind automatically ran. I found that I could not only copy dead things. At the moment when my physical fitness soared, I was able to capture the life frequency of human cells. I want to keep this power and keep this family. Sister-in-law, no! I grabbed her wrist, with struggle and desire in my eyes. Sister-in-law looked at my red eyes. She was stunned, and then her eyes turned red. She knew the suffering I endured at the dock. She slowly put down the scissors and gently unbuttoned the first button of her shirt. Her voice trembled but firm.
If this save your life, sister-in-law, I'm willing.
That night, the cicadas outside the window were screaming, and I fully understood the truth of this ability. I was copying not just objects. I'm recreating an era that belongs to me. After that night, the power in my body is no longer like before, like a raging flood, but a bottomless ancient well. As long as my sister-in-law, my well would never run dry. I realized, staying in the valley, I can only deal with little devils like Jindaya. If I really want to protect my sister-in-law, I had to go to city. So I took the fakes I copied these days with me. So I had motorcycle carburetors with better quality than the real ones, and several boxes of penicillin. I took a bus directly to the Y market in the city. It was the holy land for the traders in the 90s. Soon when I came here, my goods was taken a fancy by a man wearing a leather jacket. He also held a big phone in his hand. With this quality, how many do you have? The man gasped in surprise. Looked at me with eyes, as if looking at a mysterious big shot with great power. The man was straightforward, hand over the money, and delivered. I really made a lot of money this time, because it was late, so I simply stayed in a hotel and planned to stay. But the door was suddenly kicked open. The big boss behind Manager Joe finally showed up. His name is Mr. Wan. He is said to be a family member of a powerful department. He holds the import approval for the whole province. He found that I, an unknown person, bypassed him to put a large number of precision parts into the market, which was cutting off his financial path. I just finished writing a letter to my sister-in-law. The door was suddenly kicked open. It wasn't Manager Joe's little fight. The 4 men who came in were all wearing black in there, holding a long object wrapped in craft paper. They were the most ruthless spray guns on the road. Boss Zhao and Mr. Wan invite you to drink tea. I sat on the edge and took a sip unhurriedly. The magic water I prepared in the cup just now before I set off. My sister-in-law especially filled it for me, telling me to use it in case I was exhausted. A hot power exploded instantly. My perception instantly covered the entire hotel. I reached under the pillow from their perspective. I just took out a Type 5 pistol, but in my own dimension, in that second, using my ability, I directly cloned 3 real guns with bullets. The enemy fired first, but in front of my perverted physical fitness, the trajectory of the bullet was as slow as a fly. I dodged to the side. The woozy pistol in my hand spewed fire. I didn't kill anyone, but I accurately shot through the wrists of those 4 people. Just as I was about to interrogate these killers, the pager suddenly rang. In those days, the big brother phone was status, and a death warrant. Zhao Kong, you are good at fighting, right? But I heard that, your little widow, my car has already entered your village. Do you think she will wait for you to go back? Or I'll go in first? It was Mr. Wan's sinister voice on the other end. My pupils suddenly shrank. The Type 5 for pistol in my hand, because of my anger, was squeezed into a shape in my palm and made a creaking metal groan. That extreme anger triggered the mutation of my ability. I stared at the big phone on the table, but I was thinking about the phone in the village. I found that I don't need physical contact. As long as my energy field is strong enough, I can sense the substances that belong to me in the distance. Boss Wong, if you touch it, I'll make your entire Wan family disappear from this earth. I hung up the phone. It takes 2 hours to drive from the city to the village. But I couldn't wait. I rushed out of hotel, staring at a new Santana parked downstairs. I slapped my palm on the hood. Copy and enhance. Recombination. I exhausted all my energy. Under my supernatural ability, this ordinary car, the chassis was strengthened, the engine was forcibly enlarged, and the tires became bulletproof tires. This is no longer a car, but a roaring steel monster. I drank the last mouthful of magic water and started the engine with red eyes. In just 20 minutes, I drove the car back to the village entrance. At this time, Mr. Wan's convoy was parked in front of my yard. Manager Joe was pushing the gate with a lewd smile. Sister-in-law held Who's and huddled in the corner, holding the scissors tightly. Hey, little lady, a Kong has committed a crime. You have to come with us to redeem him.
Get out of here! You bastards!
Sister-in-law trembled, just as Manager E was about to touch my sister-in-law's shoulder. A deformed Santana that had been hit, like a shooting star, flew directly from the village road and crashed into Wanja's car. I walked out of the thick smoke, my sweat mixed with the smell of gasoline due to extreme overdraft. My skin even had tiny cracks on it. But under the gaze of my sister-in-law, I was the only god of war in the world. My sister-in-law crouched into my arms. I held her backhand. I felt the warmth of her, which could make me reborn. I looked at Manager Joe and Mr. Wan in the car behind. I gave a fierce smile. I grabbed the ground with my and picked up a rusty iron pipe at random, in front of everyone, under my supernatural ability, began to tremble wildly, and finally turned into a saber. A cold blade in the moonlight. No one can leave today. I have evolved the ability to change them electrocute. The air in the yard seemed to freeze. Mr. Wan walked down from the back seat tremblingly. He originally thought he was facing this strong but stupid smuggler, but saw the head car that was crashed into scrap metal and the long knife that appeared out of thin air in my hand. He was completely terrified. Xiao Kong, let's talk. It's all a myth. I didn't give him a chance to speak. The perception brought by extreme anger enabled me to see the bodyguard's finger pull the trigger. The muscle contraction of trigger. I flashed my body. As fast as a phantom, I slashed with the blade. I didn't use the blade, but the thick back, and slapped directly on the chests of the two in front. A few muffled snaps, the sound of rib fracture, were particularly harsh in the silent village night. I grabbed Manager Joe's neck with one hand and lifted him up into the air. His once proud legs in the provincial capital were kicking in the air. Boss 1, you want my supply and my family members? Then I'll show you what a real shipment is. I grabbed in the air with my left. At that moment, I sensed in Mr. Wan's car briefcases and spare tires in the trunk, and spare tires. I activated my ultimate ability. It's not just a simple copy, but also disintegrate. Under Mr. Wan's terrified gaze, his imported car worth hundreds of thousands yuan began to slowly peel and disintegrate in the air. All the screws and parts were being disassembled by an invisible hand. Go back to the city. Tell those who want to reach out. Whoever dares to step into this village, I'll let him end up like this car. I threw Manager Joe into the mud like a dead dog. Mr. Wan and his party crawled into the remaining car. The engine stalled several times before starting. They didn't dare to turn on. They disappeared into the night. The voices died. The village returned to peace. I stood in the middle of the yard. My long knife turned into a little light, disappeared into the air. The feeling of extreme exhaustion came like a tsunami. My eyelids were too heavy to lift, and my body was as cold as if I had just been fished out.
Why are you so silly? If something happens to you, what will happen to me and Husey?
Sister-in-law, I'm hungry.
Sister-in-law wiped her tears. She supported me and stumbled into the inner room and closed the door behind her. In the earth house of the 90s, there was only a dim kerosene lamp. Sister-in-law sat on the bed, looked at my sweaty face. She gently bit her lip, with a trace of struggle in her eyes, and then turned into endless tenderness. She gently pulled my head and let me lean on his chest. Her voice was so low that only I could hear.
Kong, don't work so hard in the future. As long as I'm here, there will always be a sip of water.
At this, the originally damaged cells began to repair rapidly. I could feel that. My body is undergoing a second evolution. After this battle, I knew that this small village in the 90s could no longer hold us back. I used my copying ability to the documents that Mr. Wan dropped in panic, and seals were all copied, and forged a set in reverse. Evidence that would keep him in jail for life, and sent them to the province. Then I took my sister-in-law and Hootsie, and took the southbound train. In that era, when everyone had a dream of getting rich. On the border of Shenzhen, I carried a huge travel bag on my back. There's no gold in the bag. Only what I have explored. The most advanced foreign integrated circuit board. As long as I have a fulcrum, I can copy the entire Earth.
Kong, where are we going?
Sister-in-law held my arm tightly and looked at the unfamiliar neon lights outside with both anxiety and anticipation. I held her hand. I looked at the magnificent sea in the south. I felt heroic. I have the ability to copy beyond I have the most indestructible body in the world. More importantly, I have a woman who can always provide me with infinite energy. Go to a place where no one dares to bully you. I will not only let you live a good life, but I will also build an empire for you. In Shenzhen in 992, the air was filled with the smell of burnt plastic and the sweet smell of money. I took my sister-in-law. I settled down in a rented house in Shekou. It's a mixed place, but I was attracted by its proximity to Gangcheng and close to the most cutting-edge science parks.
阿强，这么贵的机器，咱真的要买？
嫂子看着我从黑市拎回来的那台大哥大手机和一台极其笨重的进口286电脑，心疼的直咧嘴。这不是买，这是买种子。这几天我发现，随着我身体素质的2次进化，我的复制异能也升级了。
I no longer need to touch objects for long, as long as my palm is on it. I can sense it through my body's heat. I can even print those hair-thin integrated circuits. Directly print them in my brain, but the price is astonishing. Copying the CPU of this 286 computer almost made me faint on the spot. I'm here. Sister-in-law has developed a habit now. As long as I start tinkering with those metal objects, she will prepare in the inner room in advance. Now my sister-in-law, under the nourishment of deep and moist air, her skin becomes more delicate.
The original awkwardness of a rural woman disappeared,
replaced by a gentle and mature charm. When she handed me the warm bottle, in her eyes there was a trace of dependence that she didn't even notice. After drinking it, I felt my brain was like a super server. On the basis of the 286, I even used my psychic power. I tried to fix the design flaws in the original. 3 months later, in Shenzhen Electronic Market, a stall named Wakyang Shenji appeared. Others sold smuggled goods, while I sold the ones I made by myself. With better compatibility and faster running speed electronic compute, my reputation quickly alerted all forces in Shenzhen, but I knew it wasn't enough. I want to buy a villa for my sister-in-law and let who's go to the best school. I must create a hard product that will make a splash. I set my eyes on the digital audio-visual market that was blank. I got a Johnny's experimental decoding chip. I locked myself in the room for 7 days and nights. It was an extremely crazy week. Due to continuous and high-intent use of my ability, my body began to show a strange. I wanted to drink. That late night, I fell on the laboratory floor. My whole body was cramping. That feeling, it felt like 10,000 ants were gnawing on my bone marrow. Sister-in-law pushed the door open, holding a bottle in hand, but seeing my appearance, and the bottle was scared to shatter on the ground. I felt the panic of life passing away. My hands unconsciously grabbed his shoulder. At this moment, my ability seemed to sense the purest energy source. My perception directly crossed the barrier of the container. My sister-in-law trembled. He felt my almost crazy thirst for power. Under the dim, yellow, incandescent lamp, he looked at my distorted face in pain. He finally understood. That plastic bottle could no longer hold the power my god needed. He trembled and slowly lowered his collar, with a tear hanging from the corner of her eye, but smiled gently. At that moment, I felt like connected to the core energy matrix of the universe. No need for transfer. Without waiting, that kind of endless life essence with maternal brilliance. It was directly injected into my soul. My ability underwent a radical transformation. I found that I was no longer simply copying. I could actually create. The next day, the first, with completely intellectual property, VCD decoding chip prototype was born in my hands. The following story was like a crazy dream. I founded Kyongsheng Electronics team. I bought a whole office building in Shenzhen. A person like Mr. Wan, now he can't even enter my office. To even Di Mingpian in my office. I bought the most luxurious villa in Xiangmi Lake. I hired for nannies to take care of who's, but I have an unbreakable rule. Except me and my sister-in-law. No one is allowed to enter. Even after Who's was weaned, was also arranged in the children's room. Time quickly came to 1998. The aftermath of the financial crisis hadn't passed. In Shenzhen, there were hurried profit seekers everywhere. At this time, Kyongsheng Electronics had become a giant in the Demetrian industry. I stood on the top floor of the landmark building. In the office, overlooking the busy traffic below, I am no longer the Coolier Kong who carried big bags at the dock, but the godfather of Shenzhen called Zhao. Mr. Zhao, this is a lawyer's letter from Silicon Valley. They claim that our decoding technology infringes on their underlying patent and ask us to stop production and compensate 300 million. Secretary Zhao Li handed me a full English document, tremblingly. I sneered and casually crumpled it into a ball. 300 million? They don't want money, is my lifeblood. But this is not the most annoying thing. What really worries me is my body. With the development of my ability, I found that my demand for energy has evolved into a near-pathological dependence. I can feel that my genes is undergoing some irreversible collapse unless I can find a higher concentration of and purer vitality. Meanwhile, in the villa in Xiangmi Lake, my sister-in-law is pruning roses in the backyard. She is already in her 30s, but time seems to have stopped on her face. It's not only because I bought her the most expensive skincare products, but because of that special energy flow, but also her vitality, but also rejuvenated to some extent.
Kong.
You've been coming back and later recently.
I have a lot of work. I hid the exhaustion in my eyes. But the moment I approached her, I instinctively swallowed saliva. Sister-in-law looked at my bloodshot eyes and sighed. She took my hand and led me into the restricted area. What I didn't expect at night was that, just this night, my villa would be invaded by some uninvited guests. They were the remnants of Mr. Wan back then, and colluded with foreign commercial spies, and sneaked into my villa. Their target was not my safe, but my sister-in-law. They used high-precision life detectors. They found the source of my power, pointing to this seemingly ordinary woman. With a bang, the tempered glass of the villa was directioned. For mercenaries in high-tech combat uniforms broke the window. They weren't holding guns in their hands, but a powerful electric crossbow that can instantly paralyze an elephant. Catch that woman. Boss wants her alive. The leader man gave orders in rusty Chinese. I was in the basement. I was to copy a more advanced semiconductor lithography. The sense of crisis that tore my heart apart pierced through the floor instantly. I roared loudly. My body turned into a lightning and smashed the ceiling and directly rushed to this. That was the first time my sister-in-law, my real berserk appearance, under my skin. A layer of faint golden streamer appeared, which was a sign of overloaded. Facing the incoming electric crossbow, I just raised my hand and squeezed the void. Copy and reverse. Those crossbow bolts stopped in mid-air instantly, and then at a faster speed, and stronger voltage back, and directly burned the 4 mercenaries to ashes. But I didn't notice. There was a sniper in the dark.
Kong, be careful!
My sister-in-law pushed me away. A special bullet with corrosive toxins slipped past his shoulder, although it was just a skin injury. But the purple toxin It spread rapidly over her skin. My sanity completely collapsed at that moment. I rushed over and hugged my sister-in-law and saw her face turn pale rapidly. I felt that. The mountain in my body was collapsing. I held my sister-in-law. I frantically infused my abilities into her body to repair her wounds, but I was desperate to find. I could only copy objects, but not life.
Kong, don't cry, sister-in-law. It's worth it.
At this moment, my brain, due to extreme grief, entered a state called absolute zero. I looked at the constantly necrotic cells at my sister-in-law's wound. I suddenly had a crazy idea. What if I could duplicate cells? If I could use my ability and multiply his healthy cells infinitely to engulf those toxins? I need energy. Unprecedented energy. I frantically searched for everything. Things that could be converted into energy. I pressed my hand on the solid wood furniture, on those expensive electronic devices, and even on the foundation steel bars. Convert all of them. The power within a 1 kilometer radius went out. The metal structure of the entire villa began to distort and melt. I injected the most primitive atoms of these through my body as a medium and injected them into my sister-in-law. That night, weird auroras lit up over the Xiangmi Lake. 3 days later, my sister-in-law opened her eyes in bed. She not only didn't die, but her skin, but also became as tender as a newborn baby. In her eyes, there was a faint glow like mine in her eyes. My attempt was successful, but also failed. I succeeded in saving her, and gave her the same, a certain degree of self-healing. The failure is, this reverse energy infusion completely changed the supply and demand. Now I still rely on him, but he also begins to need my psychic field. To maintain this extraordinary vitality, we have become a true literal unity.
Kong, I feel like I can hear your heartbeat.
I held her hand. At this time, the roar of a helicopter came from outside. I knew the big shots in Silicon Valley couldn't sit still. They came to negotiate business in person, but I'm no longer the one who can only passively defend. I looked out the window. I said coldly, sister-in-law, our business should expand beyond the Earth. In front of the lithography, 80,000 times more powerful electrical machine. I started to copy an alloy that has never existed on this planet. It's the color of the Starry Sea. On New Year's Eve in 1999, there were no fireworks in Shenzhen, because in this year, I ordered all the Qiangsheng technology office to be lit up all the time. I sat in the laboratory. In front of me is a huge vacuum glass cabinet. Inside, suspended a chip only the size of a fingernail. This is not an ordinary chip, but I used my ability. Gold, rare earths, and an unknown element extracted from a meteorite. And an unknown element extracted from me. I call it the eternal heart. As long as it is installed in any machine, the machine can self-repair and self-evolve like a living and evolve. This is the miracle a miracle they dream of. But my hands are shaking due to 7 consecutive days of intense atomic reorganization. My right pinky finger has completely turned into a cold, pale grey metal. I can feel that. The metallization is spreading along the blood vessels to my wrist. This is a backlash. I have copied too many cold dead things. My body is turning into a dead thing.
Kong, stop it.
The door opened silently. My sister-in-law carried a bowl of steaming dumplings and walked in. She looked at my metallized finger with fear and distress in her eyes. Then I walked into the room with my sister-in-law quite naturally. 10 minutes later, the cyan gray on my fingertips receded like a tide and regained its color when the bell of 2000 struck. The patch released by Qiangsheng Tech, saving half of the servers in the world. I became Time magazine's Person of the Year. The title was only 3 words, God's hand. But at the same time, the real hunt begins. A secret organization called Atlas has blocked my flight paths worldwide. They consist of the world's top plutocrats and arms dealers. Their only purpose is to dismantle Zhao Kong and study my genes.
Mr. Zhao, your company is suspected of monopolizing global semiconductors. We must impose joint sanctions on you.
The voice on the phone was as cold as a machine. I sat in a rocking chair, and my sister-in-law is teaching who's to write. I smiled gently at the phone. Did you make a mistake in the sanctions? I'm not doing business with you. I'm giving you charity. I pressed a red button on the table. 1 minute later, all satellites, radars, and financial systems, all fell into silence. The entire Western world suddenly regressed to the steam age. Then I decisively hung up the phone. However, although I had sanctioned the arrogant Western Hemisphere, but when I returned to Villa, my body began to show tiny cracks. The golden light came out of the cracks, as if my whole body would explode into countless light spots, although I just got replenished, but it seemed not enough. Sister-in-law looked at me with a determined look in her eyes. She knew that the traditional way could no longer calm down the violent energy vortex in my body. She took me to the secret room on the bottom floor. There is a bathhouse I replicated myself, a bathhouse built after an ancient spring. That night, I felt my consciousness completely leave my body. I entered my sister-in-law's life ocean. When I opened my eyes again, I found that my ability evolved to a level that even I was afraid of, and on my sister-in-law's forehead, there was a faint and looming golden mark. She became the carrier of my power and also my only weakness. Here, the Atlas organization did not give up. They awakened an ancient relic at 10,000 meters. They awakened an ancient relic that had slept for 10. It was a biological computer with self-awareness. They believe only gods can defeat gods. Zhao Kong, if you don't hand over that woman, we will activate the Crust Shatterer. The threat is no longer a joke. Earthquake monitoring stations around the world are warning. If that relic is fully activated, the entire continent will sink to the sea. I looked out the window at the rough sea. I turned to my sister-in-law and said, "Shall I go?" Sister-in-law smiled. There was no fear in her smile, only infinite trust. I'll go wherever you go. I used my ability. In 3 minutes, I copied and improved a private submarine that can withstand 10,000 meters. In fact, This is no longer a submarine. The Mariana Trench was silent. In front of that mountain-like, huge ancient computer, our submarine was as small as a speck of dust. The electrokinetic waves sent by the other party tried to analyze me, trying to analyze the underlying code of my ability. The energy coupling of low-level creatures. A mechanical sound exploded in my mind. I held my sister-in-law's hand and directly stood on the bottom of the sea. My ability formed a transparent spherical space. To isolate the sea water, I snorted coldly. I pressed my hands hard on the reefs on the seabed. Wide range, absolute copy. I even tried to copy the physical properties of the trench. I wanted to use the power of the whole ocean to crush this self-righteous computer. But the terrifying consumption, instantly, my body began to crack. Before the blood could flow out, it was evaporated. A Kong included me. My sister-in-law hugged me from behind. She pushed all the life essence and pushed it to me without reservation. At that moment, we were no longer two people. We were one. A super engine that crossed the boundaries of biology and boom, the sea, bursting out a light brighter than the sun. Under the combined attack of us, the ancient computer, all the logic circuits were instantly overloaded. The energy that could destroy the continent, I forcibly copied and transformed it into warm aura and spread throughout the ocean. The storm subsided. The powerful technology company, I turned all the core technologies into fragments, scattered in every corner of the internet. Let all humanity share it. Instead of being monopolized by a few tycoons, I took my sister-in-law and Hootsie to the small village in northeast China. In front of Big Brother's grave, I placed a bottle of wine and a photo of me and my sister-in-law on the top floor. Big Brother, I took good care of my sister-in-law. Our Zhao family is now the masters of the world, but we just want to come back to farm. When the villagers found out that Zhao Kong, he contracted a large wasteland in the back mountain and grows ginseng. No one knows that just one of those ginsengs can extend life by 10 years. No one knows that. Every night, in the renovated old house, the man who dominated the technology circle in the 90s still relies on his sister-in-law, depended on the endless and magical tenderness. A Kong, it's time to rest. The light was swaying. Sister-in-law closed the window. I held her hand. I felt the power inside. The finally calmed down power. After returning to the village. On the surface, it seems calm, but I knew that my body and my sister-in-law's have completely left the category of mortals. In the spring of 2005, the peach blossoms in the village bloomed beautifully. Hughesy has already gone to junior high. This kid has inherited some of my improved genes. He is too smart, and he could even break cast iron with his hand. But I have been suppressing his ability. I just want him to be an ordinary person. After all, he grew up drinking my sister-in-law's milk. His body is different from ordinary people. However, for Hughesy, his abilities are normal. But I found that my metallization into a more bizarre state. My skin began to become almost transparent under the moonlight. I could see the blood flowing in the blood vessels is not red, but golden liquid energy. Kong, you didn't sleep last night. Sister-in-law carried a wooden base into the yard. With worry in her eyes, he has changed. The year's carving knife has completely failed on his face. Now he looks like even more delicate than his new bride back then. This immortality does not come without a price. I can feel that, because he is my only energy core. His consciousness began to become a little hazy. He sometimes talks to himself in the void, as if he was talking to some higher dimensional being. Sister-in-law, I always feel the computer that was turned off underwater, that didn't die completely. I took the wooden basin from his hand. The moment my fingertips touched, a weak current exploded between the two of us. This dependence has evolved from physical to a symbiotic soul. Without him, I would collapse into a pile of atoms in an instant. But since then, life has been relatively calm, but the peace was broken on the tomb's sweeping day. My most trusted assistant in Shenzhen, Zhao Li, suddenly disappeared. Not only him, who had participated in the Eternity Heart project. 12 engineers who participated on the same day disappeared completely from all over the world. Then, an encrypted signal penetrated all the defenses I set up. It directly shows on my screen. On the screen of the old computer that has been... The screen shows a desolate polar base. An old man in a white coat facing away from the camera. His voice came out through a synthesizer. You shouldn't keep the miracle of Boss Jang to yourself. We need your carrier to perfect the final human evolution. Just 2 more words made me instantly murderous. They're not talking about chips. I realized the danger, and I immediately took my sister-in-law and Hughesy to leave the village, to a safer place. However, when we just reached the village gate, in the surrounding fields, hundreds of black mel pillars suddenly rose up. These pillars released a strange high-frequency shockwave, which was specifically targeted. I felt like my brain was hit by a sledgehammer. The ability to copy at will was suddenly locked. I reached out to create a long knife, but only a faint smoke came out of my palm. Zhao Kong, this is specially prepared for you. Forbiddance magic. Dozens of soldiers in exoskeleton armor jumped down from the helicopter. The weapons in their hands spewed out cold liquid nitrogen, trying to freeze me instantly. Protect Hughesy, I shouted loudly. I used my body to block the first cold wave. The extreme cold almost froze the golden blood in my body. I knelt on one knee, breathing heavily. I saw those cold muzzles pointed at my sister-in-law. I was desperate. However, at this time, a warm hand was tightly attached to my back heart. Kong, don't worry about those rules. I'll give you all this time. Sister-in-law's voice no longer trembled, but with a majesty that had never been seen before. He ignored the warnings of the soldiers and hugged me violently. At this moment, the energy in his body was no longer a trickle, but like a supernova explosion, rushed into my back frantically. It was a scene beyond biological logic. In the shock of the magic band field, my nearly transparent body began to expand. The golden light broke through the clouds, illuminating the night within several kilometers. I stood up. Every step made the earth tremble. Those so-called black technology pillars, all shattered under my pressure. With a wave of my hand, the nitrogen and oxygen in the air were directly reassembled under my will, not copied, but directly synthesized. Thousands of spears made of pure energy appeared in the sky out of thin air. With my command, they fell like rain, fell like a rainstorm. The soldiers wearing exoskeletons
Didn't even have time to scream.
along with their technological products, turned into nothing. But the consequences of this explosion were terrible. When I dissipated my light and turned back into human, I found that my sister-in-law's hair turned white in half. To save me, she overdrawn her life force to maintain her beauty. My heart was torn apart. I hugged her tightly. She smiled weakly and said, she stroked my face and said, "Fool, is it not cute to have white hair? No, you are the most beautiful in the world." I gritted my teeth. Tears fell on her forehead. I realized, as long as we are on Earth, those greedy eyes will never let her go. I must give the world a final lesson and take her to a truly safe place. In 2008, when the whole world was focusing on the Olympics, I used my ability in the uninhabited area of the Himalayas and transformed an interstellar expedition ship that can carry people.
I didn't use any secular resources.
All the materials were extracted by my ability, extracted from the deep crust and reassembled into supermetal. Mr. Zhao, are you really leaving? After Zhao Li was rescued by me, stood at the door. I nodded. I looked at my sister-in-law whose hair had turned black. I closed the door. With the silent roar of the engine, the spaceship disappeared into the atmosphere. This kind of thrust that seismology by 10 feet came from me and my sister-in-law. That unique closed-loop energy on the far side of the moon. I used my ability. In just 1 month, I created a city, dreamlike glass city. There is oxygen, water, seeds brought from the earth, and my sister-in-law's favorite roses in the center of the moon city. There is a temple built of sapphires. There is no gravity into my sister-in-law and I floated in midair. I found that with the change of the environment, the energy exchange between us became more pure. Akong, look, those stars. They seem to be talking to me. My sister-in-law is lying in my arms. Her body now emits a soft fluorescent light. I found that she is not just my functionalist. She is becoming an interstellar signal amplifier. Through her, my abilities can even sense the asteroid's dynamics on the edge of the solar system. This dependency has evolved from a simple physical need, has evolved into a cosmic symbiosis. One late night, I was trying to replicate a fertilizer that can make plants grow faster in lunar soil. Suddenly, a very strong fluctuation came from the direction of Earth. It was a reckless nuclear test by humans, or the activation of some forbidden weapon. I sighed and my palms glowed slightly. My sister-in-law held my hand and shook her head gently. Let them be, Akong, as long as we have enough fuel. As long as this family is here. Those noises will not affect us. I looked at him, the face that saved my life in the 90s. Now looks so sacred against the starlight. I lowered my head. In that tranquility, I continued to seek the only motivation to live. In order to let Husey have the ability to decided to seed my ability. I used my ability to copy a miniature crystal that carries 1/3 of my divine power. Husey, this thing. It can't be used unless I solemnly handed it to him in the command room of the lunar base. Dad, you're afraid that people on Earth will make trouble. I'm afraid you can't protect you. Mom, remember, everything in our Zhao family comes from that woman. She is the root, and we are leaves. Husey nodded heavily. The lights on the far side of the moon were brilliant. I looked at the distant blue planet in the sky. There was no hatred, but a kind of detachment. The poor boy Zhao Kong in the 90s has died under the tiger's mouth that night. Now I is the guardian of this silent starry sky. Time has no meaning on the moon. In the blink of an eye, decades passed. The civilization on Earth has undergone several changes. The mighty technology has long been a mythical name, and my sister-in-law still looked the same as when we left the Earth. Akong, you said, if we hadn't drunk that drop of juice back then, what would we be like now? I sat on the edge of the moon city, watching the magnificent Earth rise in the distance. I smiled and hugged her shoulder. Then I probably be a wrinkled farmer now, digging in the soil every day, worrying about buying you a flowery shirt. Such a life seems not bad, but I prefer the present. I reached out, and my fingertips, a small meteorite, broke instantly under my will and turned into dust. I danced a silent dance for him, because now I have infinite time to love you.